I think that has been an interesting take from our industry experts on what business events customers will get traveling during the pandemic. And as we can see, all businesses are consistently transforming, adapting to the situation to ensure the highest level of COVID safety, while also ensuring that everyone will have a unique experience. Let's move on to Q&A. We have a few questions here from the audience. If you do have more, please feel free to send them in. Let me quickly proceed to our first question. With regards to all the new processes and methods brought in by the global chains, there appear to be only a short-term solution. They are all well and good while the hotels are running low occupancy, but what will be the impact on the cost for the owners? And how effectively will they be when occupancy begins to climb to higher levels? So I guess this question maybe Kun Benjamin can share with us.
Thanks, Kunali. Look, I think with relation to that, I wouldn't agree that it is a short-term solution. And I keep going back to the point that international standard and branded hotels have been running high levels of hygiene for decades and decades and for a long time, and they've always been associated around that. I opened this hotel 5 years ago. We were HACCP certified within 12 months. So, you know, these aspects will be here and elements will remain. Increased levels of cleanliness might wind back, and I don't like using the words new normal or old normal. I think we're just running higher levels of what we require to deliver the business at the moment, and as they slowly start to dissipate off, we'll naturally see that. I don't disagree, and Andrew hit the point really well at the opening of the event, that there will be a balance of who bears the cost. You know, I've had some reasonably significant capital expense that I have had to purchase operating through this period. So things like digital thermometers, looking at if we're going to do the camera guided thermal imaging for guests moving through. We're the largest Novotel conference hotel in Bangkok. I've got a rooftop bar, so on any given day in high occupancies, we can have thousands of people at the hotel. So areas like that to be able to help mass movement of people will be a cost. And unfortunately, that's a cost burden that would go into the hotel's operations or a capital expenditure. I think when we look towards an ongoing cost, there will be a balance. I think there is an element that we may not be able to provide events as cheaply as we have in the past. Thailand's always been known for incredible value. I think that value will continue. However, there will be elements we do look at. And I think to Richard's point, it gives us also a great avenue that if we've got a corporate event or a client event, we can personalize and add a level of touch points to this. And that would be a cost that I think fairly would most probably sit with the organisers. But again, hotels, like always, will be able to create that as a value add package or an element in the normal level of negotiation. So yes, I am mindful of the cost, but definitely at the end of the day, we're here to make business. We're here to make business work, and hoteliers are great at finding that balance and closing business.
I see. Next question for Richard. Will planners contribute financially towards creating ambience?
I would share what Ben just said, that some of these additional decorations or ambience settings, the cost of that will definitely go back to the organizer and therefore transfer back to our customers. But what we do, how we sell to the customer is that it is an added value. We tell them that this will add on to the ambience of the event, the experience for the audience. And therefore, it's really how we skin the cat, how we actually sell to our customers and tell them that this is a cost that they should be paying for. Whereas standard operating procedures that the hotels and venues are already setting up, I think is sufficient. And definitely, like Ben said, it will go back to the hotel, definitely. But for events, any additional setting or decorations definitely have to come back to the organizers.
Kun Ben, how will COVID impact the future of hotel designs? Will hotels still be interested in meetings and events?
Great question, thank you. Look, this is a pretty big conversation to have. There's really two clear minds. There's a large amount from a design firm, and I was only speaking to a partner that we use that does design hotels. Part of my role, I'm literally opening a new Ibis Styles in Ceylon in the next few months, and it does have conferencing facilities. Some venues are choosing to redesign. They have used this as a period to renovate or enhance their particular areas. So there will be some changes in the way that we are doing that. And in future, there might be some hotel designs that have been modified slightly. However, at the end of the day, I feel, and this is my personal opinion, but I feel that eventually we will go back to a level of complete normality. Events will go back to full capacity. People will be side by side, and the time frame we can't deliver. So I think there is a reluctancy to completely modify and renovate areas, because as Richard mentioned as well, we do want to create that intimate space. We do want to return back to the social aspects of conferencing that we've always had. I love meetings and events. It's been a big part of me since I started in hotels and working through, and I love working in hotels with big meetings and events, and I think there'll always be a massive interest. It's a key driver of revenue in hotels, and it adds such a wonderful touch to any busy hotel. You're showcasing the best of food and beverage, the best of your facilities, as well as really doing what hoteliers do best, and that's welcoming guests and making them feel great.
Our next question is for Andrew. What's the preparation for travel bubble that Australia and New Zealand are doing? What's the pros and cons from your point of view?
Yeah, so at this stage, as I mentioned before, the cons are our ability through our state borders being closed, or some state borders being closed. There is some discussion around still direct travel between New Zealand and those states regardless, but I personally don't see that working very well unless all of the country is open. So those conversations are happening at the moment. There are some of the tourism industry bodies that are being very proactive in this space, establishing a restart timeframe and lobbying government, because I guess there's a lot involved in airlines and travel between countries opening up again that needs to take place. There's that whole consideration around customs and visas and border protection to some degree. So there's a lot of back end processes that need to be understood, and that will take some time. But we do need our airlines to be healthy. So when we're ready to go from a business events perspective, we've got two major airlines in Australia. Unfortunately, one of those has gone into voluntary administration, and just by having a single carrier here in Australia is not a good outcome. So we need both airlines in a position to be up in the air, doing what they do, moving people around. And that's really critical for us, because we don't want to see spike in prices to be able to get from one destination to another. We want to see access to not just our capital cities, but our key regional destinations like Cairns in the Great Barrier Reef, Gold Coast, all across Australia. We want to see access return as it was. So I think the health of our airline industry is just as critical, and part of that New Zealand opportunity is just that growth on that scenario.
Mm. A lot of crisis management actions are being taken currently. The question is, will we see the old normal returning? I guess this question, all of you can share your views. Richard?
I do not think that it's going to be business as normal. It will not be, because there's a raised awareness of hygiene in public places. And as long as we feel we are not protected because there's no available vaccine, or even if there is an available vaccine, we never know what is the next virus coming out, there will be that request by clients to make sure that certain SOPs are adhered to ensure the safety of the audience.
So it's just a psychological impact that will last. I totally understand what you mean. Kun Benjamin?
Yeah, as I mentioned, new normal and old normal, I think we've got a lot of terms that have been brandied out recently, and I'm not a fan of many of them. I think there will be an element that will always remain, but I keep going back to people have chosen large-scale, international, professionally run hotels and meeting events for a long time with that level of confidence. This has touched everybody in the world, this current situation, but from what I'm seeing in the early signs as the restrictions are eased, I do think and definitely hope that at one point in the future, we will always have those high levels of hygienes in place, but hopefully we can resume back to effectively how we've always done meetings and events. The time frame is the most difficult one to plan on.
Andrew.
Look, I hope so, that we can get back to some form of how things were. We just did a study at the end of last year that showed the business events industry contributed $35 billion to the Australian economy. It's a huge opportunity for Australia, but it's not just on the visitor economy side. There's also all of the magical trade and investment opportunities, the knowledge transfer, the innovation that comes out of people coming together in person that just doesn't happen in a virtual space. So I really hope that we can get back to that same level again. Employing 229,000 people in Australia in the business event sector, really key components. I actually just again, coming back to that data nerd, I ran a little report on some information that we collect. We actually collect the bidding information of the Convention Bureau across the country to get some insights again around the work that they do. And amazingly, I ran a little report on the business that Convention Bureau's placed by venue type. And importantly, up until the end of December in 2019, the biggest growth area was the hotel sector from a venue perspective, where business placed in hotels grew by 26% across the year on year. And amazingly, the biggest organisation type was the corporate sector, with 54% growth in hotels. So if we can get back to some sort of sense of normality, it means business for everyone, which we really have to strive for. But I do think what Richard mentioned before, there is something we need to consider, which is pre-vaccine and post-vaccine perhaps. And we don't even know if a vaccine can be found. So we have to keep that in mind. But if a vaccine can be found within the next 12 months, I think there will be a dramatic shift post that time. And we'll have to continue to adapt and live within a particular type of means and additional safety and hygiene protocols across that period. But we have to be prepared that might not occur as well. So, yeah.
Okay. Next question. How are hotels managing travelers who have bad behavior around buffet? If they become unruly, our clients may ask us, that is event agencies, to remove our groups from their hotel immediately. So who wants to go first?
Yeah, look, I have a funny feeling I'll kick that off. So look, we've now been managing buffets. We've now been managing buffets for several weeks. As I've mentioned, we operated through the entire situation and we'll continue to do so. The best thing, or one of the best things, is that everybody has a massive amount of awareness of the current situation. There's a massive amount of mutual respect. You will always have challenging guests. That's a part of our job and has been a part of my job for 20 years. How you manage them is how you manage them. But I do think there is a level of education that will need to be done. There could be some barriers with different guests. We're a multinational hotel. We have guests from all around the world, and as business resumes, we will continue to welcome them from all around the world. But at the end of the day, that's the hotelier's job, to politely talk to somebody. Please ask them to revert as to how they should and how they manage. And look, in the event, like no different, you manage everything on a case-by-case basis, but I don't see it becoming a large-scale issue. And when I see how my amazing team of artists at the hotel have rebounded in such a challenging situation in resumption of buffets and how we manage it all, they do it all with in their stride. They know what to do. They know how to manage it. And again, at the end of the day, we are hoteliers, we are hospitality people, and it's what we do, live and breathe every day.
Richard, would you like to share your views on this?
I've been in the event industry for 25 years, so I've dealt with all kinds of guests. But what I normally do as an organizer when I'm approached by the hotel on unruly behavior is to go back to the organizer and get the organizer to speak with their guests. Because then it comes across as an owner of the event to manage their audience instead of us going to them and being accused of being rude. Yeah, so we don't want the tables to be turned on us. We push that task back to our clients and they will have to take care of that. And normally it works because they know that they have to follow rules. And just like Ben says, everybody has a respect for what's happening right now. And I think it's a general understanding that we have to abide by rules for the safety of everyone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely true. Next question for Andrew. Any short-term sales tactics recommendation if we want to bring business back as quick as possible, as businesses do need cash to get through at this point?
Yeah, it probably comes back to what I mentioned earlier, and I think it related to one of the earlier polls around just being able to have that lead time. There is a time that's required to plan an event, but not only to plan an event, to market that event and get attendees. If it's an in-house corporate activity, then that's probably a slightly different matter and can be turned around much more quickly. But again, being a little bit biased, I would definitely work with your convention bureau. As I mentioned before, there's a pipeline of activity that they're working on. They're working on those postponements with the venues and the clients as the intermediary in many cases, and there's business that's currently already there. It's just a matter of whether the client has the time and the confidence to be able to run their event in the near future. So I guess in essence, there's quite a bit of business out there, but it just comes back to whether that can be switched on in the short term that's required. We certainly know that there'll be issues when those properties that have been closed, they open up. They're not going to get to 100% occupancy straight away, and particularly from the events perspective, that's not going to happen. But we need to work together, I guess, right across the whole board, the supply chain, the client side, the bureaus in the bidding process, to get back up and running as soon as possible. Because in the absence of business returning, governments are pressured to provide more, wage savings and other forms of compensation. And I'm sure that's the last thing they want to do, spend money that they don't have in bailing us out of this circumstance. So I think we all need to work together to get things happening as quickly as we can.
Gentlemen, if you'd like to add on, please do. Any short-term sales tactics? If so, I'd move on to our next question.
I completely agree with Andrew. It's going to be collaborative. It's so critical, and we always have done, and we will continue to, but it's even more important working with all government bodies, national agencies, tourism associations, third party, because we all need the business to return as quick as possible. And I think also, to Richard's point, using the expertise of organisers, I think will continue to grow. And I think that is maybe a potential, hopefully some green scenario from this, that people will want to use the creativity, definitely in the short to medium term. And hopefully it opens up the opportunity for more people to understand that if there is a cost associated with those organisers, the real value that they bring, because they bring an amazing amount of experience to pulling off events. We've got great teams at hotels, but I just keep on circling back that it's a team effort, and you need to work really, really closely with inbound and outbound organisations as well as professionals.
How has the cost structure and pricing model of event organisers and agencies changed, Richard?
I guess that comes to me. Okay. Yeah. With my experience with the corporate clients right now, a lot of their budgets have been slashed, at least down by 50 to 60%. And that means that budgets for events, whether it's live events or virtual that we're running right now, is running at an all-time low. And the change would be to be very basic, to offer what is basic, and to add on value add items as an optional item. That's number one. Number two is that if we were to do live events, and we are actually running some live events, hopefully by the third quarter. And what this happened, how we actually charge them would be based on additional hygiene factors that needs to be put in, like for example, the creative sections that we need to add on, that definitely we have to transfer back to the customer. And that's the change there basically. But everything is worked on a very conservative manner because we need to understand that everybody has a bottom line.
Mm-hmm. So how can hotels and venues price accordingly? It's a related question. So we all can make a profit. Hotels and venues, so how can you price accordingly with the situation? Benjamin?
Look, I keep going back. There will be some increased costs. There's always increased costs. Levies, government levies, taxes, air uplift, if I'm honest, would be one of my primary concerns. And I don't like anything I can't control. And I can't control the price of air tickets as they move forward. I heard this morning on Triple J that Qantas is going to start resuming seating and increasing their domestic flights at the moment, running through, and they're not going to have the third seat removed out of their domestic flights. Masks will be optional but not mandatory. So look, I think there will be some costs associated, but when we get back to the question of hotels, it's always going to be that balance. Definitely, I'd be lying if I'm saying the profitability of meetings and events isn't up for a little bit of a challenge with the reduced capacities that we can hold. It definitely is a scale business in many instances. When you remove at that boutique and high end, you've got a lot more margins involved, but when you're doing large scale events, it's definitely a capacity number. So, you know, whether it's going to be a mixture of these hybrid virtual events, how you're managing it. But look, unfortunately, there is a reduction in the amount of meetings and events we will have for the short, medium term. I've got 11 meeting rooms. So as one of our other panelists mentioned earlier, it might mean that a normal event that might have only used one meeting room might use 6, because we are using breakout rooms consecutively, where previously I wouldn't have had that availability. So I think we can manage it. And as restrictions ease, I can assure you we'll still do it in a measured response that's with safety and guest comfort at front of mind. But as soon as we can start turning up margins, we definitely will. But there will be some slight cost increases, I would imagine, across some aspects of doing groups.
Andrew, can you share with us what's the common key focus in the recovery plans of Australian CVBs in the next 6 to 12 months, and any particular interesting ideas you have seen so far?
So I think first and foremost is comes back to what I mentioned before around that lead time of being able to open up and accept business. If we miss the next high season, we'll certainly be lobbying for an extension of what we call our JobKeeper program, which is a wage subsidy scheme put forward by the government. And given that the tourism and business events sectors have been hardest hit, we may be eligible for an extension in some way, shape or form of that scheme beyond its shut-off timeline, which is scheduled for the end of September. So we have to think about the health of our industry. The focus here in Australia has really been about keeping people employed, and not so much around making a profit, but having the doors open so that you can turn a coin, that you can then pay staff to exist until we can get to the other side. So that's probably the first area that we'll be assessing quite strongly. And I know governments typically don't allow you to have everything that you ask for, and you have to eventually prioritise and look, from our perspective, that would have to be a priority if we needed to turn to that. I think also the health of the client side, you know, again, as I've been mentioning earlier, is something that needs to be considered, and also looking at what elements of risk they're exposed to. So I think catalyst funds that can assist event organisers, pay for deposits, you know, given they may have already had difficulties in postponing or cancelling events across the last little period, to encourage that activity to happen in the near future across the next 12 months. I think a catalyst fund to stimulate demand would be a great thing, because not only, particularly if you're looking at the association sector, not only does an event trickle down funds through the destination, through the various supply chain elements, it also provides revenue for the organisation. We want organisations to continue to exist and survive beyond the COVID-19 crisis, because without the clients, we have no industry to run. So I think those are the two key focuses at this point in time, making sure we look after our industry, but also trying to stimulate demand when it's safe to do so.
Next question for Richard. According to a poll, people tend to look towards the government for much needed trust. As a planner, do you think CVBs should keep up their games better in terms of gaining clients' trust?
A simple yes. Any sort of reassurance from authorities, whether it's government or non-governmental, definitely will help to boost confidence of customers to want to visit that destination, to want to go there to run their events or to garner some experience from it. So definitely yes.
Anything specific you'd like to see from Thailand?
But I think Thailand is doing a fantastic job at this moment.
All right. Andrew, would you also like to share any thoughts on this, Andrew?
Look, I think communication is the key, and that's where bureaus come into play, and various other state authorities, is making sure that the information is clear and understood about what the situation is on the ground in that destination. As I said, it's probably a little bit complicated right here and now across the country with the different rules and procedures that are being allowed, but that's because things are moving so quickly. I think those destinations that can provide the best and clearest communication, also that very personalised touch to those clients as well, really delivering on what the client needs, I think is going to be the absolute centerpiece moving forward. And so aligning whether it's your product as a venue or your destination to the needs of that client, I think will be critical like never before. So I think that's my contribution to that. Yeah.
Kun Ben, how are you managing social distancing versus pricing? And is this becoming cost prohibitive?
Look, there are some aspects of conferencing and events that will be a little bit more difficult, but at the end of the day, we do need to resume as much revenue generation as we can. I think in talking with a lot of our partners recently, there'll always be exceptions, but most people are not taking advantage of this situation and not really aggressively pushing price down. There's a few questions along the lines of price dumping or cost dumping. I don't think that really helps anyone as an industry, and I don't think it helps anyone at all, because at the end of the day, when you dramatically reduce your cost to try to stimulate business, somebody has to foot the bill, and it has been a very difficult last quarter. So I think there needs to be a very careful, and I think as an industry, we do need to show some levels of leadership in that regard, because what is an individual person's decision or an individual business unit's decision can have wide sparking impacts across the entire industry. You know, we've got a lot of hotels in Thailand and in all regions, and it's really, really important. So I think when we go back to social distancing versus pricing, I know I say it a lot, but it is that balance. It is negotiating with the clients. But again, it's about being creative. We've got a lot more facilities. Do you do the event outside? Do you activate? And I've been doing it for a long time in my properties. You don't use your traditional convention center, conference center and facilities just to have events. You can have a meal break in the driveway. You can have a meal break around the area, around the swimming pool, in the gym, in the kids club. You know, definitely hygiene principles will make that a little bit more challenging than we have in the past. But again, you know, this is what my team of professionals do. We do maintain cleanliness and we do continue through, but there will be a little bit more pressure for sure.
Richard, will client increase budget for their program post-pandemic?
No. we know the answer to this. It's no. They give you a budget and you work with it. I think what we need to expect is that if we can justify the expenditure, the additional expenditure, and if it means that their audience will be safe, their objectives will be met, yes, they will increase, but not exponentially. I think we still need to be very conservative with this regard.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
yeah,
now
look, just on that point, I think that's a really important point to circle back to. I think if hotels start applying cost increases because of COVID or because of new situations, I don't think that's going to be accepted very well. But to Richard's point, I think if you're showing the value behind it, whether it's an increase in what you're offering, whether it's a benefit that's being given back, or whether it's a peace of mind to a multinational or an international company, I think there is always the ability to communicate with those organisers and explain what it is. Cost adding for cost's sake is never going to work, but if you're explaining it and have great relationships, you're always going to be able to find that middle ground and get some extra costs added back. But there is no doubt, particularly with the additional airlift, uplift cost and some other areas, there will be some challenges with budgets being cut. But at the end of the day, we've already seen people do want to have these events, groups do want to happen. They will be hybrid, but you can't have every single event in a webinar or on a Zoom call. You do need to resume back to this because businesses do need to resume back and hold meetings and events.
Mm-hmm.
The only part that I'll probably add, coming back to that that hybrid virtual component, is that I think hotels and venues will probably have to start to look at whether that's packaged or part of the standard package, if that makes sense. So I know that model has changed depending on the hotel structure or the venue structure around what's on sold. But I think a lot of technology will now have to become part and parcel of the basic package. And so considerations about whether you outsource or have that in-house, all of those I think are up for grabs for decisions in the near future.
Let's talk about the darker side of things, a possible nightmare. The second wave of COVID-19, which we're already seeing some news in the United States, international business events could go darker for much longer. So can our industry really rely exclusively on domestic markets? In that case, how can we brace for impact? And Ben?
Thanks for giving this one to me. Look, I won't deny we don't have the same domestic volume that maybe a country like Australia does have. But I definitely wouldn't say that it's all doom and gloom. We are the largest inbound market in the world is Bangkok. We were on the well way to having 40 million inbound visitors last year, and I think it still finished out at almost 38 or 39.5 million. So if there are second waves or if there are challenges moving forward, there will be added pressure. But on the flip side, we still have a massive international and multinational business network in Thailand. So yes, the groups may not be as large, they may not have some overseas delegates, and that's where this hybrid model will definitely work, where CEOs might dial in, ex-coms might be dialing in, but the local offices, the local events still will continue to happen. And as long as all of us are using elements like a Cause All Safe program, we keep on showing the confidence that we have in delivering this higher level of hygiene, higher level of procedures training, national national standards like the SHA that we've got in Thailand, and I'm sure all large countries are implementing their own safety measures and certification around that. I think we're going to manage it, but yes, there will be challenges with a market that does have large inbound volumes in, and it's not only an issue for Thailand, it will be an issue for some other, but you know, this hasn't happened overnight. I can assure you the amount of planning and work that's being done with large-scale hotel companies and groups hasn't stopped. And we're a resilient bunch of people, and we've been through, unfortunately, crises in the past. So we will find out how to manage and navigate that through, but it's just another challenge that we'll need to take in our stride.
What about Malaysia?
I would think that I look at it a bit more positive. I won't look at it so gloomily, because I think with the first wave, we sort of have everything in place. We are ready for whatever comes. And with the travel bubble that we were talking about just now, I think we can restrict travelers from safe countries so that we can help each other and support each other as a region. And I think that in that case, business can still be forthcoming. It may not be as good as before, but at least then we are able to sustain ourselves.
Andrew?
Benjamin alluded to, I think we're quite fortunate that we have a very big domestic market here in Australia, and that's probably also because of our geographic location being the second last stop on the end of the line other than New Zealand, from the North American, Asian and European markets to some degree. So a lot of the bread and butter revenue from venues and suppliers is made out of the domestic market. And so I think, you know, putting that to one side, a second wave would be absolutely devastating. I think we've done such a good job to get to this point that for us, we can only see things opening up more and more. But as you're probably aware, the biggest debate that's happening here at the moment is with regard to the recent Black Lives Matter protests that occurred across most cities in Australia. And while the content of that emotional protest is really, really important here, the timing is couldn't be any worse, I guess, given that we've hit the records that we have. So if there are any outbreaks that occur, it will lead to a second wave of some scenario, I would imagine. But on the flip side, if there is no outbreak from any of those mass gathering activities, then maybe we can turn that into a positive in that we have done such a good job. The scenario of community transmission, or the risk around community transmission, is very low, and therefore there's an opportunity for business events to open up more swiftly. But look, you know, the international market, while we are so far away from the rest of the world, is key for us as a country. I think we heavily rely on trade, and business events are a key component for Australia tapping into export markets. We need to learn from the world's best, and by hosting them in our country is a way to do that. So it is a very important focus for Australia to continue to do well in the international marketplace. We just had the results, I guess. Interesting to see pre-COVID-19 that Australia just moved up to 12th place in the world in the ICA rankings, which is a fantastic result for us, with Sydney moving to 20th. And we continue to bid for and attract those large corporate incentives out of Asia. They're really important for us and showcasing our wonderful country. So while the domestic market is a huge opportunity, we certainly wouldn't want to lose that opportunity of the international client.
We have a couple of minutes left. Let's end it on the brighter side of things. Perhaps you would like to leave some message of encouragement to our audience, and to actually share your personal views. You know, what have we learned from this crisis, and what makes you think that our industry has proven resilient so far? So this last question is for all of you. Richard?
Okay. I think if there's anything that I've learned through this whole entire episode is to be very positive, to look forward to the next step, use our creativity that we have that we normally do for our projects, and use that to sustain our business, to build the next step. I think that is very important, and that is something that I've learned. The next thing is also collaboration with partners or people that you never thought you would collaborate with, but we have done that, and I think doing that has given us a lot of leeway in terms of business development. And and I think these are the two key areas that I've actually learned, and I think that's the way to go.
Benjamin?
Yeah, look, we're a resilient group of people. We have hospitality is in the DNA of all of our teams. And that's something that is really, really important for us to never forget. We add a human touch to everything we do, and I think that's not important. It's really important to continue and maintain that, because we have gone through some pretty significant challenges in the last few months. I think there's a good level of optimism with the green lanes or travel bubbles that we'll continue to run through. And, you know, some of our key feeder markets for Thailand do and have controlled the current situation quite well. So we are, quietly optimistic about the amount of business that then can start following in. And we wait for bated breath for local restrictions to continue to ease. Not too fast to the point that it creates a level of uncertainty in the market. but fast enough that we can get back to having groups and events back. So I think that it's a mixture of a lot of things. What we've learned from this current situation, look, it has been unique in many, many different ways, and we've never seen, or certainly in my time, and we've never seen such a large-scale situation cascade across the entire world so quickly and for such a prolonged period. But again, you know, it can only make us stronger, makes us more resilient, and it allows us the ability to then work on those new normals. And I keep going back to, we need to continue to give the confidence to our guests, to our customers, and to our clients that we will deliver a safe and measured with a great level of experience. And I think we will continue to do so. And we just need to look ahead for the positives.
Andrew?
How does that saying go? Never waste a crisis, I think. We talk a lot about the legacies of business events. I think we need to think about the legacy of COVID-19 on the world. And I think to some degree, it has challenged every single business model out there and every single business relationship that exists. And so with success typically comes complacency. And I think as the global travel market has exponentially grown over recent years, and we've all been the winners out of that growth, I think with the global shutdown now, we really have to rethink how we do business and not waste that opportunity. So I think looking forward and being optimistic, we would hope that there would be better business practices that come out of this, better relationships and better business. So yeah, don't waste this opportunity.
All right, from today's talk, we know that there will be challenges, concerns until there's a vaccine for the virus, but people are getting used to life under the new normal. I, for one, am getting used to this, but I see business events, hospitality sectors are working together to gain trust from health-conscious customers with all the hygiene standards currently implemented. And what I know is that the power of human connection is irreplaceable. So travelers, incentive travelers will soon return. That's it for the Q&A. And if there are remaining questions, it'll be sent to our speakers who will be answering them for you. And that will be posted in the Facebook page later. So do stay tuned for that. Thanks to our audience for participating, and also thanks to our speakers for their insights. Do stay tuned for the next series, our webinar series from Site Thailand. You can follow Site Thailand's Facebook fan page for more information. And before we say goodbye today, I'd also like to request our audience, all of you out there, to kindly help evaluate today's webinar. Do scan the QR code, which in a few moments will be shown onto the screen. We would appreciate your thoughts on that. On behalf of Site Thailand, Tika, TSEB, I'd like to once again say a big thank you to our speakers, to Richard, Kun, Benjamin, and also Andrew for being here with us. Thanks to our viewers once again. Please do stay safe, stay healthy, stay hopeful. Have a wonderful Friday and a wonderful weekend. I'm Chalapansan Rula. See you next time. Sawadee ka.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.